Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I'm your host, Tommy McIntyre Jr. Well, the Philadelphia 76ers are 28-47 in the season, which is more wins than we've accumulated over the last 2 years, which is kind of crazy. Unfortunately, this may make our lottery chances a little less, but we'll be talking that as well as Philadelphia Phillies. Spring training is almost done and we're getting ready for the season. We'll be talking that with Alec Kosville coming up after this.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hello and welcome back. Well, Philadelphia 76ers have really had an up and down year. I mean, considering the fact that we started off the year with #1 draft pick Ben Simmons, the fans were hyped, I know I was, and then you find out at the end of summer camp that he breaks his foot. And so now we're like, oh, we just lost our #1 pick, but we have a guy in Joel Embiid coming in who hasn't played in 2 years. He seems like he's finally healthy, and look what he does. He plays, now doesn't always play back-to-backs, but he plays in games and plays really well, averaging 20 points a game. And the season seemed like we were on the up and up. We were even he was even saying, oh, we can make the playoffs. Then he gets hurt, and then you're like, oh, where are we at? Where are we at with this team? But you got to give him credit. Look at what this team's been able to do since he's gone out. They've really just been able to come together. A guy like Darius Saric showing what he can do as a rookie, probably going to win Rookie of the Year this season, just based off the fact that he's been going off this last stretch. I think it's been very impressive, but I just want to open up to the rest of the guys. I have Kevin Cook on today to talk the 76ers as well as the Philadelphia Phillies, and I have Trevor Gorick to come on and talk Sixers. So let's get right into it, guys. The Sixers over this last stretch now, I mean, have really just proven the fight they have in them, I would say. I mean, Coach Brett Brown has really grown with this team. I think you look at guys like T.J. McConnell, obviously Covington, and then Darius Saric as just big-time players. In this last stretch of really just putting, Trevor, just putting this team in a position to show the fans that they're fighting and they're fighting to win games.
Yeah, I mean, as you just said, two of probably the most hyped up players coming into the season, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, hurt throughout the season. Simmons hurt at the beginning of the season, and Embiid hurt after he played phenomenal for the 30-plus games he played. But it really showed how this team could come together after these two huge injuries and how they're playing with heart and passion. And I think that's what the city of Philadelphia, that's what the Sixers want to see going into the future. And especially coming in next year, hopefully we have these two players back and we can only go up from here, I think.
Yeah, and I think we could actually just bring up the standings of where this team is at. And I mean, obviously, look, we're not making the playoffs. But that was not our expectation going into the year. I mean, what we really just wanted to see was growth. And you can't deny that, I mean, obviously without the stars, without a guy like Joel Embiid playing, without Ben Simmons, you're not going to win a championship in this league. We need those guys to come back healthy. But when you have players that can, you just see the fight in these guys that have developed, it proves that you have an organization that can develop young guys, like T.J. McConnell, like Covington. So just talk about that, Kevin, and just how this organization has proven that they can develop some players.
Well, it's not just the organization. I think it all goes back to Brett Brown, the coach. He's taken players that we've talked about before. T.J. McConnell, a guy who's undrafted. Nobody wanted to touch this guy. And now we're talking about him possibly as being the backup point guard for this team behind only Ben Simmons. And then other guys he's taken out of the D-League. He's proven, like Robert Covington, he's proven that he can take players and with time and with the willing to and the want to succeed in the NBA, he can turn them into successful players. And that's what the Sixers have in their coach. He is arguably the best player developer in the NBA right now, and that's the reason why he should be staying here. Especially moving forward, they're going to have a bunch of young talent coming in, and they're going to need to know how to play together. And when you have him at the helms, it's going to be a good thing to do.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, I mean, having a coach like Brett Brown, I think we talked a lot about, even in this season, just how you were you thought he was a great coach. You thought he could develop guys, but those end-of-game situations, right? There's points in the game are like, we have to get this W, and you just weren't seeing it on the court, and you were questioning, is it the youth? Or what is it? And then he was kind of able to prove that this season. I don't know if you want to say something about that.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I remember I didn't really like the way that the team was going because of the fact down the stretch, he wasn't giving the ball to the right person. I mean, I know at that stage we only had Okafor and Embiid, who were the potential best players on the court for us right then. But now with the way that Covington and McConnell has stepped up, we have options, and that's all credit to Brett Brown. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Trevor?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think just seeing like the late game situations at the beginning of the season, it was just, I feel like it was just a matter of the team coming together. And I think now it's pretty evident that these guys are coming together in late game situations and even in big games. Like we were just talking, they beat the Celtics, which was a huge win. And without Embiid, without Simmons, I don't think that's anything that anyone expected. So to see these guys come together, it's something that I think Brett Brown has strived to do, and I think he's finally accomplished it. And we've been seeing it over the past couple weeks.
And
Go for it, yeah.
I actually agree. Like this, it has shown how well that they have developed, and the fact that they're miles further ahead than what we expected them is a good thing. However, the only other thing is we still need a couple other pieces. The way that the team's built right now, especially barring health, even if they stay healthy with these players, I think we're still maybe one player, a shooter, and maybe a six-man away from contending. And the only thing is, I kind of want to ask you is, do you guys think that that's going to be, that the success that they're having right now is hurting their chance to get that player in this year's draft?
Yeah, I think that's going into our next point is just kind of what does this mean? I mean, considering the fact that they've won games, which is great, you have to realize now that we're sitting in a spot now where our lottery chances are dwindling in terms of just having a better chance to get that #1 spot. We also have that Kings swap, but they're also winning as well. So we're kind of, I think we're around like 6 or 7 right now, and they're right around us. So we're talking about 7th, 8th spot in the lottery. Now you can jump. Teams have done that before. I mean, last season, I think we even talked about how that is the first time really that the team with the worst record got the first pick since like that Orlando draft, and since Dwight Howard was selected. So I think it's a problem, but I think if you're winning games, if you're playing the right way, there's a lot of great players in this year's draft, I feel. I think they even say guys all the way down to like the 8th, 10th pick in the lottery could potentially be all-stars. So you can get players.
And the way that some of these players are playing in the tournament, I mean, Fox from Kentucky just blew up down the stretch.
And he's still, and he was a lottery guy also. Now, he's not a shooter, so I guess in terms of Trevor, who do you see, I guess, in college who you think would be a good fit in that pick? I mean, you got guys like Fultz and Lonzo Ball, who are probably those top 2 guys at the board, so you would have to get up there. Yeah. But I mean, maybe even down the line, guys like Josh Jackson, Kansas, who's like a more forward player. We talked Dennis Smith Jr. out of NC State. So who are some players you think?
I think even Malik Monk is a guy that I like. He's a pure scorer. He's a 3-point shooter, and I think he could fit into the Sixers really well. I mean, right now we have like the big men. We have Ben Simmons coming in next year, but we need like that one 3-point scorer that can just be a threat at all times. And hopefully he can, like he's done his job in college doing that, but hopefully if the Sixers did get him, he could develop nicely into a pure scorer in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think Malik Monk is a guy that I really think could fit well because we don't really have any player on our team right now who's like that. I think Covington is a shooting guard, but he can't really create for himself, and Monk's a guy that can. He's a guy that can handle the ball a little bit, and he can shoot from the outside. And I'm a person that likes I got like Steve Graham in the back, and the producer's shaking his head. He likes Malik Monk. He's telling it all year. He likes Malik Monk because we just need shooters. We need scorers on this team. Guys that are going to be able to prove that they can be at the end of the game and be relied upon. And I think you were talking about that earlier, Kevin, about how this team, and the reason we were so poor in late game situations, because we didn't have anyone that could shoot. We didn't have anybody that can really score the ball.
Look at that Kentucky-North Carolina game. It showed players that are down there right now, they are able to do that. And the Sixers are going to have a shot maybe to grab 1, possibly even 2 of those players in Fox or even Monk that are coming out this year. And they have a shot to get players who are good at scoring, 1, and 2, they can create their own shot, but they're also clutch when it comes to it. Malik Monk hit a dagger that looked like it was going to send the game to overtime, and then North Carolina came back and scored. But if I were I agree with Trevor. I mean, he's the guy that I'm targeting in this year's draft. But they're going to have a shot to get somebody good. It's just, are they shooting themselves in the foot? And I think that they kind of are with the success they're having.
I don't think the thing with the draft is always this. I mean, look at a guy like Devin Booker. That was a guy that dropped in the draft, And look how well he's playing. He was able to put a 70-point game. They wound up losing that game against the Celtics, but he put up 70 points, only like the sixth guy to ever do it in the NBA. The kid's barely 21 years old. I don't think he is 21 years old. And, I mean, that guy came from Kentucky. So I guess it proves also that Kentucky's a nice place to get players. I mean, they've just proven over the years. Guys like John Wall, even Jamal Murray, who's plays for the Nuggets this year, is playing well out of Kentucky. So there's certain schools, certain teams that I think develop good NBA players. But I don't know. I mean, Trevor, what do you think? Do you think that the Sixers winning is hurting them in terms of possibly getting that next star? But, I mean, we also have to realize the fact that, look, I mean, you have to play well in order to have fans. And in order to have fans believe in this process anymore, I mean, it's been a long time. You got injuries on top of injuries, which, I mean, you can't really do anything about, I mean, if they get hurt. But, yeah, just speak a little about what do you think the winning and then also lottery chances mean?
Yeah, so I think the fans of the Sixers have waited for a while to see a team really come together and beat some good teams, and that's what the Sixers are doing now. And I think the one big thing that's on our side is, as we've said, this draft class is so stacked with good players, like up until the 10 spot, which is pretty good. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those players, and I think they can all develop to be borderline superstars in the NBA. So I think that's the one thing we have on our side this year, bringing the fans in with winning, and then plus having a draft class that's so stacked. I think I do wish like we had a higher pick maybe, but I mean, even if we do get Malik Monk in like the 7 or 8 spot, like I can't complain about that, honestly.
If the problem is if he falls that far too. But
the other thing, and we haven't had this in a long time, is that they're actually fun to watch now. The fact that they're in every game. I mean, even in the other game when they excuse me, they ended up losing it. They fought until the very end of that game, and that's a credit to how far this team has come. I mean, in the beginning of the season, they would not have done that. Even last year, they wouldn't have done that stuff. And now, and just imagine what and that's how exciting it is for the Philly sports fans and for us up here, because we know when they get some of these talented players back, like Embiid, Simmons, whoever they draft in this year's draft, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the expectation next season, if you can have a healthy Ben Simmons, I mean, Embiid is always going to be tough because, I mean, I think they're always going to be very careful with him. But in terms of Simmons, I mean, you should expect this team to be able to compete for a playoff spot. I mean, that 8th seed, I mean, because the fact what Miami's done this year, I mean, really not playing that well and then going on a massive streak, it's not like any team has ridiculous more loads of talent at that end of that 8th spot usually every season. It's just you have to get to around 40 wins. And right now they're sitting almost at 30, probably will get there with the 7-game stretch left. So it's conceivable that they can do it. Even with Embiid this year, they probably could have had a more chance of getting there. So, yeah, just speak a bit about that, Trevor, in terms of wrapping up here. Where do you see this team going in the next year?
So I think it's going to be really exciting to see where this team goes. With Embiid and Simmons hopefully coming back healthy, plus bringing a guy out of the draft. Those are 3 very prominent players on this team. And plus seeing how the other players like TJ McConnell or Covington, how they've developed over this season. It's shaping up to be something exciting over the next 2 to 3 years. So I think we're only going to go up. Unless there's another unfortunate injury that comes over the offseason or in the next season, I think we can only go up from here.
Yeah, and I think we should also keep in mind that we do technically still have the Lakers' protected pick. So if they drop out of that top 3, we get it, and then that changes everything. Then you're talking we have 2 top 8 picks in this year's draft, which would be crazy. And you know Sixers would love that takeaway from the Lakers. But we'll have to wait and see about that. And then if we don't get it this year, we get it next year, unprotected. So we'll still have a pick from them. But that's going to do it for Sixers Talk. I want to thank Trevor Gregoric for coming on to talk some Sixers. Really appreciate it. We'll be coming right back with Phillies with Alec Costable as well as Kevin Cook. Stick around, so stay around.
Dancing to me, I think it's the truest form of expression.
I was a dancer since I was 4 years old. I was tripping and I was falling and I didn't even know what multiple sclerosis was.
with the 360 camera, it gives the chance for someone to see what I see, experience what I experience. Have a surprise.
Are you ready for this?
Here we go.
Oh my God. I dream sometimes and I see that. I like the way your arms end. Yay.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk Philadelphia. We're going to get right into Phillies talk here. I really want to talk about how well, over this course of the spring training, we've really seen some guys develop. And I think we're going to start off by talking about Stassi. But before that, let's talk to Alec Cosville. We're going to introduce him coming on. Really appreciate you coming on and talk some Phillies, as well as Kevin Cook sticking around. But yeah, we could bring up Stassi right away, because I think that this is a guy that has definitely proven himself on this ball club in this spring training. And obviously, look, I'm not a type of guy that buys into spring training all the time. You can have great spring trainings and then not do so well in the regular season, but you got to give it up to him. I think Brock's really played well. I mean, you're looking six home runs, 17 ribbies, batting .339. Alex, just talk about what you've seen from him in spring training and what you think he could possibly bring to this team if he comes up onto the big-time ball club.
Well, he's definitely shown he could hit in spring training. You saw there he's hitting for .339, I believe it said. And he's tied on the team with Franco for 6 home runs this spring. So that's a great sign right there. This is a guy that's won the Eastern League MVP, I think, 2 seasons ago with Reading. So this is a guy who can bring that added bat to your bench and give Tommy Joseph some off days on first base and maybe even play a little bit of outfield and see how that works out.
Yeah, and Kevin, I mean, talk about when you can have a guy that can come off the bench and hopefully be a nice bat. It's always great to have pinch hitters or guys that can give guys rest, like Alec mentioned, in terms of Tommy Joseph. So speak a little about him and just what you think he could bring to this team this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, like Alec was saying, I mean, he's tied for the league in home runs, but he's also leading the team in spring training. I mean, I know it's only spring training, but he's doing a good job down there. He's leading the team in RBIs. And he's got a great average, .339. Among everybody who's had at least 45 at-bats, that's the best average for the team. So he's hitting very well down there. And if he can carry that over into the regular season, it's going to be huge, because to have a bat that you can trust to come off the bench, that's something that a manager would love to have. And I'm sure Pete McCannon would attest to that, because it's very difficult to pinch hit in the MLB. And if they can find out if he can do that for them, then he's going to have a spot on any major league roster, not just the Phillies.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can have a guy, I think back to a guy like Greg Dobbs. Remember him when he had just like that crazy season where he was in, I think he had like 19 pinch hits, and he would just come in clutch spots. And that's such a difficult thing to do. I mean, you're cold. I mean, you're coming off the bench. I mean, even great players can't do that because they're just used to playing every day. I'm still surprised how designated hitters are able to do it so well, not being in the field. But I guess in terms of other players, what other guys have you seen this spring training, Alec, that have maybe impressed you, or even guys that have been on this team? A guy like Franco, is there anything there? Do you say, what is the year he could possibly have? What do you think?
Well, going to the guys that have impressed me so far, of course, we have to talk about the 2 other guys in contention for the last roster spot, and those are Yasmel Valentin and Daniel Nava. Both have hit over 300, I think both over 330. And they're both contending for the last roster spot. Yasmel Valentin, a guy who played in Double-A last year and looking fantastic this spring, may actually have a chance to break the roster. Of course, we got him in the Roberto Hernandez trade back in 2013. Daniel Nava, he was a minor league free agent that we signed, and he doesn't have the option to get out of his contract until June 15th. So it's looking like he might start in AAA and not Valentin, and Valentin might break the roster. With Franco, he's had 6 home runs this season. He started off really hot. He's cooled down a little bit, but we'll see what he can do in the regular season, and that's what truly matters.
Yeah, and I think you kind of just brought us right to our main segment this time around of Phillies Talk. We're going to do predictions of who makes this roster and the guys. And I'll just start back with you, Alex, since you already kind of started ours. So let's bring Alex's predictions up for this year's roster. And and as well as Kevin's we have. And guys, just kind of talk about the guys why you think are going to make it, and maybe those last couple guys that just unfortunately just won't make this team this year. We can start with you out.
Well, the reason for me that Daniel Nava doesn't make this team is because, first, age-wise, he's 34 years old, isn't getting any younger, and right now what the Phillies could really use is a nice youth movement with some of that veteran presence, like from Howie Kendrick and from Michael Saunders. When it comes to Valentin, he's already on the 40-man roster. Daniel Nava is not, which means someone would have to be dropped from that 40-man in order for Daniel Nava to get a roster spot. So that's, I think, is the main contention point for whether it's going to be Yasmel Valentin or whether it's going to be Daniel Nava.
And then we can as well look at Kevin's. Kevin, you seem like you have similar guys.
We have a very similar
But
lineup.
any differences and changes? What you think? Could you see any shockers? Maybe are you guys you feel may not totally be right and somebody could get in there?
I don't really think so. I mean, Nava's the only one that I left off that I think deserves a shot at this list. But I kind of agree with Alec. The reason why I didn't put him on here isn't actually because of the fact that he's not on the 40-man, but it's more because of the fact that you look at that lineup, you got Altair, Blanco, and Stasi. All three of those guys can play in the outfield. So why do you need another one that can play there? And with the way that Stasi's been hitting, you're gonna choose him over Nava. I would at least think that they would do that. So there's no need to have I guess in that case it would be a seventh outfielder who can also play a little bit of first base. And also agreeing with Alec in this one, Yasmel Valentin is a young player. I mean, he's only 22 years old, and he's hitting .366 right now. So it looks like he's turning it around, and he's also pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. So it's not going to hurt to have him as a backup if anything bad happens to Freddie Galvis or Cesar Hernandez in the middle.
Yeah, and I think really what we've seen from this ball club, I mean, over the last 3 years, I mean, we have to face the facts that it's been a lot of losing, unfortunately, for this team. But what has this losing been for? Well, it's been to develop prospects. It's been to develop people on this ball club. And Alec, I want to go to you and just speak about, I mean, some of these guys, hopefully the prospects that will be coming up over the next year or two or down the road. And guys like J.P. Crawford, obviously Mickey Moniak, who was our first-round pick, and Keche Jorge Alfaro. Like, look at these guys. Where do you hope, who out of these three do you think will be that main piece that will add on to hopefully a guy like Abdul Herrera and Franco down the line that can become of a core for this team?
Well, I believe that we might already have a core by the time that, say, Mickey Moniak will be up, because he's at least, I'd say at least 2 years away. Alfaro, he could be up anytime during this season. He had a little cup of coffee last season, but we saw what he did in the World Baseball Classic, and that could be a nice precursor to what he can do for the Phillies. Obviously, he was in a tough division there. I believe was it the home run against the Dominican Republic that he hit? I believe.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's impressive in itself. That's a strong team. And he could definitely provide some power from the catcher position. Great strong arm, will definitely help cut down on the steal game from our opponents. As for J.P. Crawford, again, we want to see where that bat steadies out, because his jump from AA to AAA saw the bat drop a little bit. So we really want to see what exactly we're getting.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we have to face it, Kevin. We can finish up with you. Just the fact that, I mean, most of what we're doing here, most of what Clintac and this organization's kind of come to fold with is just developing young players, developing a new mindset with this team in terms of just the at-bats, taking pitches and such. So just kind of wrap up for us here, just what you think this team moving forward is going to have in this season.
As far as this season goes, I think that they're going to surprise a number of people. So possibly pushing to be around a 500 ball club.
Oh, I like it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for Phillies talk, but we're going to get right into Fast Five, and we're going to start with Kevin. We didn't actually be able to talk a little bit about the Flyers of the show, but what we were able to do was make a question for you. So let's get, we got some graphics up of the Flyers and where they are this season. And I think let's face it, they struggled this season. They were not able to fully match what they were able to do in terms of expectations after that nice December stretch. But I'm talking about where they are right now. Look, they're 75 points. They still got some chances, right, to get in here. What do you think this last stretch is going to say about this team in terms of what they'll be able to do?
So if they are able to win out down this stretch, they have a shot of it. Mathematically, they're still in it. I personally don't think that they will make it, but the fact that they're going to finish strong, if that is the case, that bodes well for them. I mean, and if you look at their schedule like we are right now, a number of the games are against teams that are ahead of them in the rankings, including the Hurricanes, the Rangers, and the Islanders. All three of those teams are still competing in the wild card. So if they can beat them and then get help from other teams, they could technically slide in, but it's really over for them.
All right. Let's go back to Alec. Phillies, Maikel Franco is a guy that the fans especially are just waiting to see if this guy can really turn it on and really become that star player at third base. Does Franco go over under 25 home runs this season?
Now, if you listen to Mike Schmidt and what he has to say, he thinks that Maikel Franco can compete for an MVP this year. I think he'll hit over 25, just over, though, at around 26, 27. I don't know if he's going to go that MVP length, but we'll see.
What do you think he needs to do to get that MVP, to get to that status?
Definitely have to make sure, healthy season, that's a baseline for anything, and also he's got to start hitting for a little bit more average. We're seeing like kind of a 250, 260 guy. To get into the MVP race, he'd have to get up to like at least 280.
All right, and we're going to just quick finish, one more question. Sixers, will Ben Simmons be Rookie of the Year this season, next season coming up?
Yes.
Ooh, I like it. All right, that's going to do it from Fast Five. It was a quick Fast Five. Of course, we were running on time constraints. But I'm Ty McIntyre Jr. I want to thank Trevor Gregoric for coming on to talk Sixers, as well as Alec and Kevin. And that's going to do it for us. Thanks a lot.